life is unfair. Let's be straight. It's not fair. It's always going to be someone who's going to piss you off. It's always something's going to happen in your life. There's always something that's going to go on. So you need an overriding attitude to neutralize it. And it's what I call hustle. You can have life's either going to hustle you or you're going to hustle life. And that's what life comes down to, the Rubens way. It's that the quality of your life would be in direct proportion to your ability to hustle. Now, what do I mean by hustle? It is an attitude. It is an attitude. And you might have a negative connotation about hustling, right? But what does hustle mean? It means to jostle for position. It means to act quickly. And I'm a great believer in dealing with stuff quickly, fast. I've always had this attitude towards life generally. I find the fastest, easiest, most effective way of doing everything. And that means dealing with the shit that life has to throw at you, the trauma from the past. I mean, we all got past traumas, right? Mine are no different to other people's. Some are bad, some are minor, but we've all had trauma in our lives as kids. We might have had our dad say something to you that made you feel like this big, or a teacher might have said something to you in the past. But you need that overriding attitude, that hustle to get over it and say, no, it ain't going to affect me. It's not going to. In fact, it's going to define me in a different way. And that's what I've been doing all my life. I had an issue for many years. I didn't have qualifications, didn't have any qualifications. But then we worked out that dyslexia gives me a different way of thinking, a very practical way of thinking, a hustling way of thinking, because I have to work harder than the guy with the education, because I can't prove I'm clever with a certificate, can I? I can't say, yeah, I've got O-levels, A-levels, I've got a degree, I've got a master's. I haven't got all that shit, right? The only thing I've got is this brain and what's between it and how it thinks. And it's that disadvantage that I had, I turned it to my advantage. I hustled with my brain. So I started working out very quickly the art of communication, how people think, how to influence someone. Because the only way I was going to get anywhere in life is to show up and show people that I can do that. And I've got a mantra. I'm very fortunate. Very fortunate. When I was a kid, I used to look at someone doing something and think, I can do that. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about brain surgery here, but we're talking about, just normal stuff. I mean, I'm not going to pick up a scalpel and say, oh, let me just test your brain there, Jimbo. I'm going to cut your head open. Well, we're talking about on practical stuff, general bits and pieces. I can do that. I can do that. And it's an inner confidence. It's that ability, that attitude that enabled me to go and get a job with no qualifications whatsoever, when normally they'd want you to have a degree. Why would they take me? Because I could communicate. So I use my brain slightly differently to most people, because I didn't have that advantage of being able to prove that I was clever. Now, I'm not thick by any stretch of the imagination, but I do struggle with reading and writing. I do struggle with that even today. There are certain words where, even my middle name, I have to think whether it's spelled, it's Michael, whether it's E-A-L or A-E-L. I still struggle with that today. I mean, it's mad if you think about it. I'm 60 years of age and I still struggle with my middle name. But I live with that every day. But I don't bitch and whine about it. And that's what hustle's about. It's not bitching and whining, complaining. How many times do I see people saying, oh, it's his fault, I didn't do that. Oh, forget over your life. Sort your life out. Get your head straight. Get your head in the game. You're responsible. No matter what happens to you, it doesn't fucking matter if someone's done something to you. We had a situation during lockdown where we lost £30,000 on a house. We paid an upfront fee on exchange of contracts to a guy. And then we had to undo the transactions. We found out it was fraudulent. Now, I could have sit there and bitched and whined about losing the 30 grand. So what did I do? What can we do about it? I go through a process. And that hustle attitude enables me to not let that affect me. I'm not going to, he didn't do it. I mean, if I was just stupid enough to give it to him and didn't realize, it's just one of them things. You can't blame other people. You have to take responsibility for what goes on between your ears, right? If you think about it, as I said, one of my opening statements was life's unfair. It's unfair. There are loads of things that are going to happen to you. We don't know what life has got in front of us, but the only thing you can control is you. How you respond, how you show up. If you don't show up in the right way, it's going to, I promise you, you're either going to hustle or someone's going to hustle you. Life's going to hustle you. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. See it all the time. But even coming down to self-discipline is about hustling yourself. It's setting a standard and saying, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to do this. I always loved the film Gladiator. And if you listen to the virtues in Gladiator, he talks about temperance and he talks about courage. And there's all these virtues that Marcus Aurelius had that I look at and think, oh, wow, I want to live up to them virtues. And so even though hustle might appear to be negative, it's actually positive. It's a sort of philosophy. It's a way and a guiding light of how to live your life, is not accepting what's just happened. It's accepting this has happened, but not accepting that this is the end of what's happening. What can I control? What can I do? And you start going through a process of, well, I can do this or I can do that. I can change something. Having been through hardship, having been through market changes, having been through loss, trauma, they've all had their acceptances of this is what's going on, but not allowing it to be final. Not allowing it to say, okay, that's what this is. I can't tell you how different I am to 6 months ago. There is a huge difference, huge change in my brain because of what happened last year with Zoe. I mean, losing one of your kids is really tough. I can assure you, it's really tough. I mean, I couldn't speak about it without crying before, whereas I can talk about it now. And that's me not allowing her death to affect me to the point where it debilitates me. It's not going to debilitate me. It's going to strengthen me. And that's what that hustle attitude's about. Is, okay, what's this mean? How can I take this and utilize it? And as I said to you, probably one of the very first podcasts I ever did, how do you find something positive about someone passing so close to you, so unexpectedly? How do you do that? And that's what this is all about. This is how it all ties up together. It's having the faith, the blind faith. If you look at all the scriptures in the world, all these old religious scripts, right? Underneath them is the same, very similar message. And they're all about what we're talking about here. It's that attitude. It's that, I'm a great believer in respect and consideration. You see people walking around today so fucking oblivious to everything. They're on their phones or they're worried about their situation and they're completely blanking the world out. And they'll walk into someone without any consideration for that person whatsoever. There was a story told me once about a guy got on a train and he's jumping, his kids are jumping all over the place on the train. Someone said to him, look, can't you calm the kids down? He went, oh, really sorry. I've just come from the hospital. Their mother's just died. I don't know how to tell them, but their mother just passed away. Sometimes someone else's problem is far greater than yours. I was, this sums up in a way, right? And it's completely different to what I just explained. So this gives you one extreme example and one less extreme example. I was cutting some bushes down the side of my house, right? It took me a couple of days to cut them all down, and then I had to break them all down. And normally I paid a gardener to do it, because I've been in, how can I put this, in that state where I probably just wanted time to myself. It was a great way for me to sort of, it was very, what's the word when you get so engrossed in something that it's therapeutic. That's the word, therapeutic. So I cut all these bushes down, and then a couple of my neighbours said to me, we live opposite a cliff face. It's actually an old quarry face, and it's all, nature's taking its course, and there's all wildflowers there, and it's quite wild growing, and it's a lovely outlook. And one of my neighbours said to me, why don't you just chuck it over the fence, all that foliage, because it'll break down? And I'm thinking, no, you can't just chuck it. Other people have got to look at it. I've got to live there as well. I've got to have consideration for the other neighbours that live here. But if you think about how people are nowadays, there's not a lot of respect and consideration. I find that really difficult, because I think, well, why not? Why not have that for everybody? Because I talked about this in the past. People around are going around in what I call I mode. It's all about it. And we are, every single one of us is center stage of our own universe. We're the lead role in our play, in our movie, in our production. We're the lead role, right? I know it's, everyone's looking at me, but you're not the only character. You've got all these other people in these films, all the extras, all the other main characters, and we have to consider them. If we don't, I promise you, you're going to get lots of friction, emotional friction. You're going to get lots of emotional friction if you are so self-absorbed, and we think we're not. But we are, because our survival instincts kicked in with this stress, and we go inwards. But this is about more than you. Hustle's about more than you. Hustle is understanding you're not the only person here. And I'm going to set you a challenge, actually. I'm going to set you a challenge. I want you to make it, the person that you're talking to, make them more important than you. Whoever that is, whether it's your wife, your husband, whether it's your partner, whether it's your kids, whether it's your neighbor. When you have a dialogue with someone, don't make it about you. Make it all about them. So you might be even thinking to yourself, so this hustle attitude's all well and good. I mean, but who's Paul Ribbons? I mean, what's he about? And a little backstory. When I was a kid, I was a baker. My dad said to me, get into food, clothing, or housing. I didn't have an education, so I became a baker, because that's food. The trouble is with baking bread, there's not much dough in it, and it's the best one I got. So there you go. So eventually, I got my life together. Back when I got to 23 years of age, I realised I'd lived longer than my mother had, and I made a decision to change my life, and that's when I started hustling. That's when it started in me. It grew in me then that I was better than what I'd become. I was a complete loser up until I was 23. Complete loser. And I managed to get myself. In fact, I changed my life so much. I went from baking bread to changing my job, buying a flat, settling down, all within a year. And then I worked through the 80s and the early 90s, the recession in the 90s. If everyone remembers the recession in the 90s, it was bad. We think we got bad interest rates at 4.5% base rate. We had 15% base rate. You know, it's ridiculous. So it was a tough time. And I remember coming out of the estate agency industry in 96 because I wanted more time with my kids, because if you think about it, the ultimate really is if we can break away from the rat race of 9 to 5 and we make money on our own terms, that's probably got to be the ultimate. Unless you're a big shot businessman and you've got 6 companies and it's all about the money, we really want that freedom of choice and to know that we can work on our own terms when we want, and we're not a slave to the system. And in 96, I made the decision to walk away from a well-paid job, and I became an acquisition agent for a couple of developers. And one of them said to me, look, you're good at this. Come and work with me, 50-50. We'll buy, we'll buy houses. You do them up. I'll put all the money up and we'll sell them, and it's 50-50 at the end of it. I went, no, yeah, I'll have some of that. So that's what I started to do. And one of the very first houses I purchased was a property in East London in Forest Gate, and it was bad. And I had lots of experience in buying and selling houses for clients. I had no experience in developing. I had no experience in building. I knew the outer fabric of a building. I could go through it with you. I'm a smart lad when it comes to things like that, but I didn't understand the costings and stuff like that. So I exchanged contracts for this house. And bearing in mind, my business partner said, I had carte blanche on the money. I said, yeah, I'm buying this, and we bought it. Right? He didn't have to come and have a look at it. And we got the quote through for the building works. Now, bearing in mind, I'm quite good at maths, right? We bought it for 40 grand. I thought 25 did it up. So that would have been 65, plus a few costs, 70. And we would have sold it for 85. That's a £15,000 profit. When Bob the builder went round, and his name was Bob, popped along to see it, he went, Paul, it's not 25 grand. It's 60. As I said to you, I'm quick at maths. 60 and 40 is 100 grand. It's worth 85. There's a £15,000 loss on our very first property that we're buying, and I'm the big shop developer giving it Charlie Big Bananas. Yeah, I'll buy that, no problem. I've got to go to my new business partner and say, I think I messed up. And he went, you say? Yeah, really? He said, don't worry about it, we'll dump it. And he was teaching me a lesson, really. So I thought, well, dump it means we'll sell it for what we pay for it. He said, no. He said, I'd rather do 15 grand now than 15 grand in 9 months' time. So we'll just let it go for 25. And I'm thinking, I haven't got the money. He went, yeah, because 50-50 is 50-50, yeah? Right? Profit or loss. And I thought, oh, no. And he chucked it in auction. It went in with a guide of 25. And the day of the auction, I'm dreading this. I'm absolutely dreading this. And then it starts off. The bidding starts, 20 grand it starts off at. I'm thinking, oh, no. And my business partners looked at the auctioneer as if to say, let it go at 20. And the auctioneer just looked at the room and he went, I'm selling this. I'm going to go once. I can't believe 20 grand. And all of a sudden, loads of hands went up. Boom, 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 all over the place. I'm at the front of the room looking back. And he went 22, 25, 27, 30, 32, 35, 37, 40. And then it got past 40 and it kept on going and it kept on going and it kept on going. It sold for £52,750. Boy, was I relieved. But that wasn't the golden nugget. That wasn't the hustle, really, the relief. That was just, that's acceptance of what just gone on. The bigger picture was, holy shit, What just there? Can we use this on the rest of them that we've got coming through? Because what we'd stumbled across was, if you've got a cheap house in an auction that looks really crap with a load of people that are hungry to buy, you don't know where the price is going to go. And from that moment, a strategy was born, a multi-million-pound strategy was born that day. And we've been doing this ever since. This is what I do. I buy a house. I might even mess it up a bit, put it in the auction and let it run, because everyone thinks, and this is the clever part, right? It's reverse psychology. Everyone thinks I'm going to go and buy an auction house cheap. They don't think I'm going to pay something. I'm going to buy an expensive house in an auction, but they don't think. And it's even better nowadays because it's online. So people have got more time to think. They haven't got the auctioneer putting pressure on them. They've got time to get their calculator out and do some numbers while its clock's ticking down at the auction. So I understood this really basic premise, really, which was understanding what the market wants. And I've been doing this ever since. It's part of my, and I look, as I said to you earlier, I find the fastest, easiest, most effective way of doing everything. You can't have a more effective way of making money than that, can you? You know, these houses, we own them for less than 4 weeks. 4 weeks. If I said to you, look, you can make a 20 grand profit for 4 weeks work, not even that, it's not even 4 weeks work, having the money out for 4 weeks, would you say yes? Of course you would. It's a no-brainer. And I even wrote a book about it. And guess what it's called? Hustle Your Way to Property Success. And that's what it's all about for me. It's hustling your way to whatever it is you do. Whatever it is. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. It could be houses. It could be cars. It could be anything. But it's having that hustle mentality to take something that's negative and turn it into something positive. That attitude. This is what life's about for me. I wasn't dealt a great hand, but I just knew how to play that hand. And that makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. I remember watching Suits. I don't know if you've ever seen Suits. Great. I love that series, right? And he said, I don't play the game. I play the player. I play the man. Watch other people. See how they respond. And in fact, I had a conversation today with a friend of mine, and he was talking about negotiation. And some people think negotiation is all about the price, and it's not. I've paid substantially more than asking price for a house. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Why would I pay more than the asking price? Because I knew it was worth more money. I knew it was worth substantially more than that. I was prepared to pay. I understood the basic principles of business, supply and laws, supply and demand. When there's very little around and you've got lots of hungry punters, anything can happen in an auction. But it was about gaining control. That was the negotiation for me, was gaining control of the deal, control of the influencing the agent. There's a fine line between manipulation and influence, right? I want to influence someone to say, I want to deal with this guy, no one else. The competition to buy houses is massive. Even today in this uncertain time where we don't know what's going on. Everyone's talking about recession in the 2023, higher interest rates, affordability, inflation, but still people want to buy houses. They can't help themselves, especially if they think they're going to make money on a house. So I asked you the question, where can you use that hustle mentality in your life? Is it in your business? Is it for personal development, i.e. personal growth? Because everybody needs a bit of hustle. Even you.